Namaste students. In this video, we will continue with the Tempest Act 5 Scene 1. In the previous video, we had stopped at a point where Ariel and Prospero were talking to each other, and Ariel was summoned. He was asked and he was ordered to report to Prospero about the condition in which the conspirators were left. So we know that all the conspirators, Alonso, Sebastian, Antonio, were left in a sort of bewildered state, and Ariel sympathizes for them. He feels pity for them, and he does tell Prospero, reminds him that if he were a human, he would certainly feel sad. He would certainly feel mercy for these conspirators. Prospero, hearing that, also says that he, being one of that kind, humankind, will also administer mercy. He will choose to forgive them, because according to him, rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance, and virtue referring to forgiveness. So we see a very different side of Prospero now, where he has accepted that his conspirators have suffered enough, he has punished them enough, and now is the time to forgive them, since he thinks that his conspirators were repenting. So Ariel is sent back to bring all the conspirators to where Prospero was, near his cell. Meanwhile, Prospero draws a circle, a magical circle, where he's going to make his conspirators stand, and for the first time, he's going to come face to face with his conspirators. But before that, Prospero is talking aloud. It's a monologue where he is the only one talking. There are no other characters on stage, but he is making the audience hear what he's thinking about. So Prospero's monologue in Act 5 is an important aspect because it certainly has a dramatic effect. Prospero, as a magician, is adding to the drama of the play by talking about the power of his magic, by talking about how he's going to renounce his magic, right? So this monologue talks about power and magic, his power as a magician, and how his magic was rough, violent, yet extremely powerful. But in the same monologue, he announces that he's going to renounce his magic. He's going to give it up now, finally, because he has achieved what he wanted to, and it's time to renounce it. So even this monologue has quite a bit of similarities between Shakespeare and Prospero. As I said, as we have mentioned it earlier in the class, that Tempest was supposedly his last complete play. So Shakespeare was bidding farewell, and so was Prospero as a magician bidding farewell. Both of these characters are tired with their hard work, tired with their power and magic, and now they both would want to rest. So you will see the undertone of Shakespeare's mood that is going to be demonstrated through Prospero's monologue. So let's quickly look at the monologue now. So as I said, Ariel was sent away to bring the conspirators to Prospero, near Prospero's cell. So Ariel leaves and says, "I'll fetch them, sir." Them refers to all the conspirators, Alonso, Gonzalo, Sebastian, and of course, along with them, all the courtiers will also be brought in. Exit Ariel. Prospero draws a magic circle with his staff. So he is in the attire of a magician with his staff and robe, and he creates a circle. Now, circles were supposed to be an important element in magic, because the conspirators are right now going to be made to stand in a circular order, in a fashion, and that's where Prospero, as a powerful magician, is going to address them all. So Prospero begins his monologue. There are no other characters on stage. It's just Prospero talking aloud. Audience, of course, can hear him. "Ye elves of hills, brooks, standing lakes, and grooves, and ye that on the sands with printless foot." So he's first summoning, he's first addressing the elves. Elves are basically spirits. Okay, these spirits are tiny in size. We have heard of elves in a lot of fairy tales. So elves basically mean spirits, or diminutive creatures, meaning small sized human creatures. So he's addressing these elves, and he's of hills. So these elves and spirits that reside on the hills, brooks, meaning rivers, standing lakes, standing still, stagnant, lakes, water bodies, so still water. So all these spirits who live on the hills, in the brooks, in the lakes and grooves, and ye that on the sands. And these elves walk on the sand with printless footprint, printless, without any impression, without any print. So they are these tiny fairy-like creatures who walk on the sand, and they don't leave footprints behind. So they are magical spirits, and these spirits are also under Prospero's charm and power. So he says, and ye that on the sands with printless foot do chase the ebbing Neptune and do fly him. So these elves play around, chase, play around with the ebbing Neptune. Ebbing is basically the retreating tide, okay, to ebb and flow. Ebb is when the water retreats. We have come across this in Dover Beach. So ebbing Neptune. So these elves play with the waves that are retreating. Neptune, god of sea, ebbing, retreating. So retreating tide or retreating waters, waves that go back. These elves play with them and do fly him. Him refers to the waves or Neptune. Okay, Neptune, because he's the god of the sea. When he comes back, so with the movement, to and fro movement of the waves, elves play with them. Okay, so elves are these playful spirits, fairy-like diminutive spirits, okay, that will play with the Neptune. You demi puppets, they are like demi puppets, like tiny dolls or spirits, these elves, that by moonshine do the green sour ringlets make. So these elves are known to be very mischievous creatures, very playful, and by moonshine, by the time of the night, these elves come out in the open and create green rings on grass. Now these green sour ringlets are basically, they are also known as fairy rings. Basically it is a dark portion in a circular shape. Okay, so on grass, it's usually on grass. So on the grasslands, a dark sort of a ring that is made by the elves. Now these rings were in earlier days supposed to be considered magical because it would appear at night. Okay, and these rings also had mushrooms around it. So it would appear at night, and then people would see it in the morning, and by daylight it would disappear. So there was this whole belief that by the time of the evening and night, all these magical creatures would come out and create such magical ringlets. Okay, so these elves, he's basically talking about the elves and talking to the elves. He's addressing the elves. He says, you demi puppets that by moonshine, by night, do the green, create the green sour ringlets make, whereof the eve not bites. Eve is a female sheep. Okay, so these ringlets are basically full of mushrooms which are sour, which are not good for animals to consume. So the female sheep or the sheep that graze on that grassland avoid these ringlets, avoid these mushrooms, because they are sour in taste. Okay, and you whose pastime, meaning the elves, you refers to elves, whose pastime, who will playfully pass its time, is to make midnight mushrooms. So these midnight mushrooms are the mushrooms that will create the ringlet. Okay, so around that ringlet, there'll be mushrooms all around. It is believed that the elves would playfully create it at night when everyone is asleep. Is to make midnight mushrooms that rejoice, that celebrate, rejoice and dance, to hear the solemn curfew. Solemn curfew, please mark and underline. Basically, it is the evening bell by the church. Okay, that bell is to signify the end of the day. It is usually rung around 9 p.m. by the church. It's also an indication for everyone to be inside their homes, to get inside, because in earlier days, it was believed that was the time, 9 o'clock and post 9 o'clock was the time when all the spirits, even evil spirits, would come out in open. So people were supposed to withdraw to their houses. So solemn curfew is basically the evening bell that is rung by the church to indicate that it is time for people to retire. It's time for people to go back home. And it is at that time that all these magical spirits and elves that Prospero is talking about come out in the open and show their magic. So they rejoice, they celebrate to hear this curfew because it's their time to get out. By whose aid, by whose help? Aid, help. So with the help of these elves, Weak masters though ye be, even if these elves are weak, they are not as powerful as Prospero, because Prospero apparently declares over here that he is more powerful than these elves, and these elves are merely weak masters who are under Prospero's commands. So with their help, Prospero performs all his magic, but their power and magic is not as great as Prospero's. Weak masters though ye be, even though you are weak, I have bedimmed. So with your help, I have bedimmed. Bedimmed or dim. Dim is to darken or dull. So with your help, even if you are weak, I have used you, your help, to dim the noontide sun. Noontide sun is the time when the sun is at its peak. Yes, at noontime, the sun is brightest. Even at that time, Prospero was able to dim down the sun with the help of the elves. So with thy aid, with whose aid, weak masters, even if you are weak, with your help, I have bedimmed the noontide sun. So Prospero has administered and guided and given power to these elves to even dim down the sun, noontime sun. Called forth the mutinous winds. So with the help of these elves, Prospero has called for, summoned mutinous meaning fierce, disobedient, violent winds. So he could create violent winds, he could dim the sun, all with the help of elves with Prospero's magic. And then he says, and twixt meaning between, and between the green sea and azured vault. So between the green sea and the blue sky. Azure is the color blue, and vault means the sky. So between the green sea and the blue sky, Prospero was able to set roaring war. And we know that because it has happened in Act 1 of Tempest, scene 1, where it begins with a roaring tempest, and that was between the green sea and the blue sky. So he says, set roaring war to dread rattling thunder, dreadful rattling thunder. He has created the tempest, he has dimmed the noontime sun. He has created a dreadful rattling thunder, loud thunder. Have I given fire and rifted Jove's stout oak? So I have given fire. Fire here refers to lightning. I have created thunder and lightning and rifted Jove's stout oak. Rifted over here is to split open. So he has created thunder, he has created lightning, he has dimmed the sun, he has set a roaring war, meaning tempest, between the earth, between the sea and the sky, and he has rifted, split apart an oak tree. Oak tree is supposed to be sturdy, very strong kind of a tree, which is also known as Jove's oak, because Jove was the oak tree was the sacred tree of Jove. Yes, oak was believed to be the king of trees since it's strong and sturdy and evergreen, and also that it belonged to Jove. It was the sacred tree of Jove, so it was extremely sturdy and strong. But Prospero has been able to split that apart as well with his power and with the help of the elves. So basically, if you see in this monologue, Prospero is talking freely about all that he has done with his magic, and we as audience, we as readers get to know of the power of his magic, and it is this magic that he is now ready to give up. Okay, so he says, with rifted Jove's stout oak with his own bolt thunder. Okay, now that bolt is also, it also belongs to Jove, the god, and with that same bolt, thunderbolt, I have rifted apart the oak tree, and the strong base promontory have I made shake. Promontory basically is like a headland, is like a cliff. Okay, if you remember the pictures of Dover Beach, okay, here promontory also means like a rock or cliff that juts out, that is projecting out in the water. Okay, it's supposed to be extremely strong and sturdy and very, very solid in its form and structure. But with the Jove's bolt, Prospero can make that promontory also shake. Okay, he's talking about how powerful his magic is. The strong base promontory, because it's very strong at the base. Okay, it's a rock cliff near the sea or any water body. Even that Prospero could make it shake. Have I made shake? I have shaken it. And by the spurs plucked up the pine and cedar. Spurs, roots. So with the roots, I've plucked up the pine tree and the cedar tree, again, form of evergreen oak trees. Very strong, very sturdy, age old, probably it's centuries old. That too, Prospero could lift it from its roots. That was the power of his magic. You can see how he's talking about the violent power of his magic, and that magic he's going to give up now. So before giving it up, he is enlightening the audience about the power of his magic. Graves at my command have waked their sleepers. So even the graves at the command of Prospero have waked their sleepers. Sleepers refers to dead people. Okay, the dead people have risen, have woken up from their graves just by Prospero's command. So he can bring back the dead. Now this is the ultimate power that he's trying to tell us. Okay, have waked their sleepers, opened and let them forth, opened the graves and lets them forth. So they have come back to life because of Prospero's power. By my so potent art. All this possible with my so powerful, potent art. You can mark this so potent art. You can quote it in your answers. That is the power of Prospero's art, his magic. He could do all these things with his magic. But this rough magic, now suddenly he calls this rough magic. He has practiced it all this while, but he knows the nature of this magic. It's rough, it's violent, and he says, but this rough magic, I here abjure, I give up, I renounce. Again, very important line. It's adding to Prospero's character. Okay, he is ready to give it up, he's ready to renounce it. And when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do, to work mine end upon their senses. Now he calls for heavenly music. He's always got it with his magic, but right now again he wants some heavenly music, which even now, even right now he wants it to work mine end, to work my intention, end, my purpose upon their senses. Refers to conspirators and their senses, which were in a state of shock and bewilderment. Now with this heavenly music, he's going to release them. Okay, their senses are going to be free. So he wants this heavenly music with the power of his magic to release the conspirators from their state of bewilderment, frenzy, and shock. That this airy charm is for. So this heavenly music is going to create an airy charm on the conspirators. For I'll break my staff, after which I will break my magic staff. Again, a sign of giving up his magic, renunciation. I'll break my magic staff, bury it certain fathoms in the earth. I'll bury it certain fathoms below the earth. Fathoms is basically measuring unit for depth. So here he says, I'll bury my staff. It's like giving it away permanently. Staff, of course, we know is the magical rod, the magical stick, wand. He's going to give that up. He's going to break it and bury it fathoms in the earth. And deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book. Book refers to the magic book. He's going to drown his book even deeper than the plummet sound. Remember, plummet is basically an instrument in the earlier days that was used to measure the depth of the sea. Okay, so it would go right below to the extreme depths of the sea. But his book now is he's going to drown it even below that, so that it indicates a permanent end to his magic. So a few things to remember. Prospero enlightens the audience and readers about the power of his rough magic. Along with that, he is also announcing that he's going to renounce his magic. This powerful magic, he's going to give it up after he speaks to his conspirators. So while he says this, after it, there is solemn music. Here enters Ariel before. So first it's Ariel, followed by Alonso with frantic gestures. He was still under bewilderment. He's now going to be released. Attended by Gonzalo, who is following Alonso. Again, frantic gestures here, meaning insane demeanor, in an insane sort of body language. Sebastian and Antonio in like manner. Sebastian and Antonio were also in a similar bewildered manner. attended by Adrian and Francisco, other courtiers. They all enter the circle which Prospero had made, and there stand Charmed, which Prospero, observing, starts to speak. Okay, so till now it was only Prospero delivering his monologue to the audience. Now, after this music, the courtiers enter. Ariel, of course, brings them in. They are all made to stand in a circle, which again has magical indication that the magician has created a circle where all the conspirators are at his mercy, and he's going to now speak to them. You can by this time imagine the reactions that Alonso, Antonio, Sebastian, and Gonzalo will have to see Prospero alive after so many years. So this is where his monologue will end, and after this he's going to be talking to the conspirators. So we'll end this video here, and later we will continue and see what happens with the conspirators.